Hello, everyone. Today is going to be a very interesting subject because we will finally understand why FlexBeam gives us such good results. So today is all about technical characteristics of the device, but also it will be giving you some broad understanding of the whole field of photobiomodulation therapy. And we will learn also a little difference between lasers and LED devices. And of course, we're going to talk mostly about the FlexBeam. So these hard or hot lasers, they're also called thermal lasers, are used primarily in surgical settings in the hospitals. But there is also a photobiomodulation therapy, and you can see these lasers used to heal the diabetic ulcers and venous ulcers, yes? So photobiomodulation uses low energies and have photostimulating effect. It does not hit and destruct the tissue. So this is the biggest difference. I quote you here at the bottom, there is an article, Proposed Mechanism of Photobiomodulation of Low-Level Light Therapy, written by Michael Hamblin and Lucas de Freitas. So this is article you need to read, okay? I kind of dissected it for you and created the table. So what is important about this? First of all, to say that in this last 50 years in field of photobiomodulation, everybody was looking for one specific parameters which would say this therapy is better than this therapy. No, it doesn't work this way. Photobiomodulation is resting on basically two parameters, which are inclusive of many. So one is irradiation and second is time, exposure time. So Dr. Michael Hamblin compared these two as we take medicine. We take the tablet. The tablet is irradiation parameters. And then the doctor say, take one tablet a day or take 3 tablets a day. This is a dose, okay? So for us, the dose, it's the time of exposure. So if we sort of group together the parameters for irradiation, which will be wavelengths, it will be power density, which is irradiance, pulse frequency, duty cycle, beam area, beam spot, etc. All this like little nitty gritty. This is all irradiation, how we deliver this stimulation. And the second, it will be a dose. A dose, it's energy which you pump in the tissues, yes, over a period of time in seconds, and overall exposure time. So this is considered to be dose. Okay, so we go further. Let's look at the first parameter, wavelengths. You played at school with the prism, I'm very sure, because I did. And it was fascinating to see how white breaks down in these beautiful, beautiful rainbow colors, visible colors. So basically, this is wavelengths, yes, expressed in lambda. And wavelengths just show the distance between consecutive peaks. For example, here you could see between peaks and troughs, yes, consecutive peaks will give you a light wave. It measures in nanometers, which is very small of the meter portion. And you could see you have ultraviolet spectrum, and then you have blue, like violet, then blue, then green, then yellow, and then reds, and then it goes to infrared, okay? So this is wavelengths we're playing up in photonics. And this therapy, if you go to medical establishments, they would refer to, when you start talking about light therapy, they immediately think of UV light therapy, because that is how it's called. Light therapy first been used in UV spectrum, UVB specifically, for treatments of particular psoriasis, but also severely vitamin D deficient people, yes? So UVB. This is called light therapy. Then there is a spectrum of blue light therapy. Blue light therapy would be used typically for acne because it's got bactericidal effect. Green light therapy, this is something new and very, very interesting and promising field, because green light's used in a variety of settings for metabolic diseases, for arthritis, for even headaches and migraines. And then there is a red light therapy, which encompasses red and portion of near infrared light. So this is beginning of their infrared lights, will be also called red light therapy. So wavelengths are interested to us in terms of penetration depth. You could see here the penetration of depths, blue, green, yellow, are rather superficial, yes? So they literally just coming through the hard surface of the skin. They're somewhere reaching the, maybe in the best scenario, dermis. So that's why they mostly use for cosmetics and aesthetic purposes. Red lights can penetrate the epidermis, dermis a little bit deeper, but again, it's kind of limited to the surface of the skin. What is interesting for us, we're interested in near-infrared light. You could see here, near-infrared light has deepest penetration. It goes deep in the body. But how deep? It really depends on the many other parameters. We're going to talk about this. So here we are. By the way, red and infrared lights, they're mostly like really seriously researched in the field of medicine, because this is very safe, doesn't have any side effects, and most importantly, it penetrates deep in the body. So what is interesting for us? The so-called optical window. Optical window, it's a window where you have most impactful wavelengths on the body functions. Here you could see impact on hemoglobin, oxyhemoglobin, melanin, and water. And what is particularly interesting in the optical window is that could we affect mitochondria where in the tissues we irradiating or not? So mitochondria's window is between 600 to 1100 nanometers. This is the most optimal for stimulation of mitochondria. In red lights, it's 635 to 700, in infrared, 760 to 1100 nanometers. Beyond that, you could see the water start picking up and start absorbing in the tissue. That's why infrared lights primarily absorb water, and it's got a really great impact on the energy of the cell, but also because it absorbs water, it's gonna generate this like a water battery inside the body. So would it impact mitochondria? Not in this spectrum. Mitochondria is here, okay? So when water is absorbed in the tissue, it's gonna give you a mild thermal effect as well. But generally speaking, both red and infrared light, they don't use thermal effect. It's purely photostimulative effect. So where does FlexBeam come from on this spectrum? You could see it lives here because it's between 625 to 635 and 810 to 830 nanometers in the near-infrared spectrum. But it's perfectly aligned if you look back. It's perfectly aligned with the mitochondria absorption range. Now let's look at second, I think really important parameter for the success of therapy. It's called irradiance or power density, or just power, yes? So irradiance itself, the amount of power delivered per unit of area, and that is measured in milliwatts per centimeter square. This is irradiance, yes? So the diode power, yes, also be irradiance, but it's expressed in watt per centimeter square. So irradiance determines the intensity of light energy to be delivered to the tissue. So if you have superficial focus, then of course irradiance will be diminishing as you go into tissues, and then it dissipates. Yes, so irradiance or power density really depends on the light source. How strong is that light source? So this is a crucial factor ensuring that enough energy reaches the target area, but at the same time we don't want it to burn, so it shouldn't be thermal effect. So avoid thermal effect. What we need near infrared and penetration depth. It will be if you use high power density light source, because low power density will give you just superficial saturation with photons. It's not going to penetrate deep in the tissues. Also, what has impact on the power density? It's on its own light source, yes? So, for example, this is quite wide distributed light source, or this is an infrared 830, yes? The beam is more tight. But also, you need to look at the actual distance to the skin, yes? So, if you come close to the LED, whether it's a laser or LED, you have like much more saturated, yes, 200 milliwatt per centimeter square. Yeah, and here, if you come to closer, because the beam is narrower, you can see 200 is a lot closer level. Yes, so this would be like 10, and that will reach at 5, for example. Yes, so the actual aperture of the light source, or how tight the beam, will have impact on the irradiance, and also distance of the light source from the target tissue also will impact the irradiance. By the way, I give you this link, Complete Guide to Light Therapy Dosing. You might want to read. It's very interesting. What nobody really talks about this, but lens are used in LED primarily, actually making a big difference. Yes. So, for example, you can see different kind of lenses. Yeah, and there is like a cone shape or just flat. That will have impact on the irradiance too. So the lens angle determines how light spreads or diverges, yes, or focuses, converges after exiting light source. The wider lens angle reduces irradiance, but covering broader area. This is the second scenario. You see, it's wider, but covering broader area. So maybe it's good for if you need to have a big area of radiation. In contrary, if you want a really specific, very sort of pointy, then you need a narrower lens angle, because then the irradiance will be smaller, more focused, more localized area. Spot size and the beam's area. Also, lens angle directly affect the spot size of the beam area. Now, narrow lens angle results in a smaller spot size with high irradiance, and the wide lens spreading light over larger area, low irradiance. Tissue penetration also will be affected. A focused beam with narrow lens angle can penetrate deeper in the tissue. So important to get to deeper structures. And lastly, very important that if we use an array, then we need the uniformity of distribution light. You can't be some area hotter and then like stronger, some areas less, yes? So it does not give you uniform irradiation. So this is an example. This is like, for example, collimated laser. diode system. So laser has always really precise, very, very strong, deeper saturation with the stimulation with light of the tissues, yes? So lasers so far, they give you much cleaner, much more energetic input, much more precise, yes? Where the LED, if it's a single LED, it's much more widespread. But to get it deeper in the tissue, I will show you later, you need the power. If you don't have the power, the effect will be very superficial. And then there is a situation when we have array, we have many, many, many LEDs. You've probably seen on the face mask, you've probably seen on the Seluma, like over the belt, they have many, many, many LEDs. So what's going to happen? There will be interaction between each of the LED, which will add to photon density and irradiance power too. And that is a simple, so it will irradiate bigger area for you, okay? Again, how deep it's going to penetrate, it's really depend on the power of the laser or LED source, okay? If it's a weak LEDs, you're not going to get deep penetration. They have to be strong, okay? So, and this is a little bit like a concentrated photon density. Look at this. I was very interested to find for you visual representation. So that's what happened. When you wrap FlexBeam around the specific part of the body, you get this three-dimensional delivery of the beam. So you have much, much more concentrated area if you place it. Not only you place on the skin, but you also deliver three-dimensional stimulation, deliver energy to the target tissue much more efficiently with a higher power density. Then, of course, we have the pulse frequency. So pulse frequency, it's basically a number of the pulses delivered per second and typically measures in hertz. And pulses can enhance therapeutic effect because they modulate cellular response, and they would reduce the energy buildup because it's on, off, on, off. And of course, frequency could be faster or slower, yes? And different frequency typically they modulate different biological reactions to it. Okay, so this is pulsing, you just pulse. And the other one is called duty cycle. This is a ratio when there is on to off, okay? On, off. Could be for longer on, for shorter off, yes? It's a one type of duty cycle. Could be opposite, short on, for longer pause in between. So this is all going to produce a different physiological responses from the tissues which you are stimulating. The high duty cycle means the light is on for greater time, okay? So this is for you just to understand. There is a paper which called Dive into Complexity. Dr. Michael Hamblin with other authors, where they reviewed approximately 33 studies, and where part of this paper is the discussion about should we use pulse waveform or continuous wave? Continuous wave is CW abbreviated. So in some studies, they found the pulse light potentially superior for wound healing or post-stroke management, while the continuous wavelengths will be better for nerve regeneration. Just remember this. It's depending on what are you targeting. There are some more research. I don't know how to pronounce it, Gigobenato, I think, indicated that combination is more effective for nerve regeneration rather than just one method alone. Oyede and Shimizu study, they studied osteoblast-like cells, of course, on animal model, and they revealed that pulse light at 1 to 2 hertz significantly stimulates cellular proliferation and bone formation with 2 hertz behind being optimal. So here I should tell you, when you do research in scientific papers, you have to kind of separate some studies done on the cells in vitro and some studies done with live creatures like animals and human beings in vivo. Okay, there is a difference. In vitro, because scientists use just cells to stimulate, their all the parameters will be a lot less, like watts, joules per centimeter square will be less, hertz also less. But if you go on larger animals, you'll see this will be higher. So what's about our FlexBeam? FlexBeam incorporates both continuous, that's you get in program 3, and pulse. And pulse we have in both program 1 and program 2. And sweeping between, actually 10, this is a mistake, between 10 to 1000 hertz, okay, to achieve best therapeutic effect. So with this knowledge, you should remember that with this knowledge, you should know that if you combine continuous wave and pulse wave, you might get better therapeutic effect because they are different physiological impacts. And also, photobiomodulation could be used compared to ordinary treatment approaches like non-steroid anti-inflammatory. You may get the same effects, but without side effects of non-steroid anti-inflammatory, because that is what scientists found in their research as well. So FlexBeam uses effective wavelengths and they have pulse and frequency. So best to combine these two. Now, let's talk about the dose. The dose, it's the energy. You see, I found this symbol and I'm thinking, you're going to remember this. You're going to remember the battery is a symbol of energy and time. Yes. So the total energy delivered per unit area measures in joules per centimeter square. This is the energy density. Energy density combines irradiance and exposure time. To quantify the total energy dose delivered into the tissue, appropriate energy densities are necessary for achieving therapeutic effects without causing adverse reaction. And this is super, super, super important. I cannot stress how important this is, because if you don't get the energy density right, or saturation with photons, basically, you're not going to have therapeutic effect. And one aspect, you don't deliver it deep enough in the body, and second, there is very weak energy. You're not going to get results. And also, if you deliver deep, but you have too strong energy, you're going to negate this whole process. Because there is such a law, exposure time is also very interesting, because it's such a law. You could see on the diagram, if you push energy up, at some stage, it will be too much energy and you start negating the effect, yes? You can even get the negative effects. But to be honest, I have not observed this with the FlexBeam. I don't know why. I think maybe because we give indication to people to make occasional breaks, and that might be making the difference. And so we give restrictions of how many placement a day you should do to avoid this. So you're always somewhere, you know, at the tip of the iceberg to get a better results. So the exposure time, as we agreed, is really big one, because it's like irradiance over a period of time, 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 100 seconds, 60 seconds, for example. Yes, of course, the energy will be build up. Okay, so this exposure time is really important. Both underexposure and overexposure can reduce the efficacy of photobiomodulation. So now this is a summary. You can keep this diagram somewhere close to you if you want to, just to look. So we have wavelengths measured in nanometers, and it determines the penetration depth and specific cellular effects, yes, because there could be like blue light, remember, affects porphyrins in the bacteria and kills biological, the parasites and bacteria. Power density measured in milliwatts per centimeter square, also called the radians, indicate the intensity of light energy delivered into the tissue. Pulse frequency measured in hertz, this is number of light pulses per second and affects cellular response to thermal buildup. Duty cycle, ratio on-off, yes, influences the average power delivered into biological response. Beam area and spot size. Beam area measured in square centimeters and affects distribution of the irradiance and energy density over the target area. And spot size will do the same. Spot size is the diameter of the area of the light beam reaching the tissue. Now, let's talk about the dose. Dose is super important. Time of exposure. I've got this formula for you. I put it in red. Power density times time equals dose. So if we refer to power density as milliwatt per centimeter square and time is in seconds, then the dose will be joules in centimeter square. So you can actually have the dose with the different time frames, yes? So for example, if you use it for 1 minute, 10 minutes, there will be a different dose. So dose is simply telling you how long that power density was applied for. Higher light intensity means less application time isn't required. So for example, I have very weak LEDs or laser diode, 5 milliwatt per centimeter square. And if it's applied for 200 seconds, it can give you 1 joule per centimeter square. But if I choose a slightly more powerful LED, 20 milliwatt per centimeter square, and if I apply it for 50 seconds, less time, it gives you still 1 joule per square centimeter. And if, of course, very strong one, like in the FlexBeam, we have 100 milliwatt per centimeter square. This is applied in near-infrared light. So if you'd have a dose 100 milliwatt per centimeter square, but applied for 10 seconds, then it gives you 1 joule per centimeter square. So if it comes to FlexBeam, how do we calculate this? So if the actual joules, it's a power in watts with time in seconds, yes? So 100 milliwatts is 0.1 watt times we use for 10 minutes, which is 600 seconds. That's going to give you 60 joules per centimeter square in infrared, and with 50 milliwatt per centimeter square in red for 10 minutes, it will give you 30 joules per centimeter square. So there is also a difference between what research papers are showing. So if you look at the research papers, they typically, when they use studies in vitro, which means small cells taken off the body and shone light on them, they, of course, require less energy, yes? So in vitro study, the dose is referred as optimal is 0.1 to 6 joule per centimeter square. So if you would use less or more, it becomes ineffective. However, for animals, for like laboratory animals like mice or human beings, we need more energy. So in vivo, that is a study on animals, yes? In vivo studies, results showing different ranges. For example, 20 joules per centimeter square or 70 joules per centimeter square, or even 700 joules per centimeter square. So you could see the requirement goes higher when the animals and the humans are bigger. So the higher dose also tend to show beneficial systemic effects. So now you've got all these parameters for you. We have joules, which calculated is power by time in energy joules, or energy density. Density, it's joules per centimeter square. So this is the total energy delivered per unit area, which combines irradiance and exposure. So radiation time is will be exposure per seconds. That's why we're going to use in 10 minutes 600 seconds. Yes. The duration for which the target area is exposed to light source, it's determined the total dose of energy delivered. And of course, lastly, what is related to dose, it will be the time, how time interval. So how consistently you are stimulating. Maybe you're stimulating in like 1 second here, 1 second there, 1 second there, which typically for laser light therapy. Or maybe you use like a FlexBeam, you use 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And then you need to introduce a break, right? You use the days and then you have a short break, or you can't use consistently, okay? Because that would be a problem, which we're going to talk about. So, and there is a treatment breaks. How often and when? Different light sources, different manufacturers have a different idea of the treatment break. So now, some of you have seen this slide before, but I kind of summarized the effect from the difference between lasers and LEDs. So lasers and LEDs, they both elicit photobiomodulation, photobiostimulation. Yes, they stimulate to modulate the body responses. And lasers, they have different safety class compared to LEDs. So safety class for lasers is much stronger, yes, much bigger, and it could be an issue because remember, laser beam is really focused. This is a diagram for a laser beam. It very clean lights. It's monochromatic. It doesn't go between 625 to 635. It goes like 635, very specific. And you can see the all energy from the diode, and also depending how big aperture, maybe smaller, will be really energetic, and it goes to one spot. So of course this can create thermal effect, especially bad for eyes. So there is a classification for lasers by power. So like 1 milliwatts of laser will be class 1, 2 milliwatts in class 2, I think 5 in class 3. And as you go further, sorry, it moved back. If you go further, then it gets like 3A, 3B. So 100 milliwatt will be class 3B for lasers. Well, with FlexBeam, we do 100 milliwatt in program 3. And that is still class 2 because the LEDs are really safe. Why? Because look at this. There is a light is distributed over the area. Both of them, red and infrared, they distributed, they spread around, and they irradiate the area. There is no specific stimulation. So in a sense, I really love to use lasers for laser acupuncture because it will be specific to the point I want to stimulate. But if I want to irradiate area, that's the area, then LEDs is more appropriate. And this is laser. So why people believe that LEDs are superior? It's because they were told so. Because laser have history, 50 years of history, and there is so much research. And first LEDs, when they come to play in the year 2000 plus, they were really inefficient. They didn't deliver, not clean the wavelengths, etc. So in a sense, yes, they were very inefficient and they weren't therapeutic. But hey, we're in 21st century. It's 2024 now. So, you know, the LED industry moved so far because LEDs are used now almost everywhere. So talking about the comparison to LED and lasers, they are very comparable. And this is for you. I've got the links to these two researchers. It says LED and laser promote similar biological effects that are dependent on irradiation parameters, mainly wavelengths and the dose. Not by source, but by radiation parameters. If you get parameters right, you're gonna have photostimulation. And for second paper, for several decades, it was believed that coherent laser light was necessary, but as of today, non-coherent light sources such as LED have proved to be just as efficient as lasers in promoting photobiomodulation. See, the main researcher, Dr. Hamblin, is speaking about that. So in a sense, we both doing the work, but very important, the parameters. And you already understood what sort of parameters we're looking for. This is, I brought this diagram for you because recently we evaluated by irradiance their competitive devices like Kinyon Lumaflex. And you could see straight away the energy here is 330 milliwatt, okay, with the Kinyon. Lumaflex a little bit more, you could see, but wider, but still quite low, yeah, 1200 milliwatt. I need to change that in red. And FlexBeam gives you 6,300 milliwatt. You could see how much stronger that. So this will guarantee the delivery of the near-infrared light. So to sum up, you could see here, FlexBeam operate within the range of 625 to 635 nanometers in red and 810 to 830 in near-infrared spectrum. So this is first, we target the body by using correct wavelengths. For deep penetration, we use 810 to 830. And for superficial program 1, we operate in red. Second, target by source. So we use LEDs because we irradiate in the area, not the point. And we deliver deep in the tissue as lasers. I forgot to tell you that also you will hear the argument within the chiropractic community specifically that lasers, because they are coherent lights, they maintain coherency, delivering energy deep in the tissue. Coherence means they ordered, they organized, therefore the beam is not so scattered, yeah? However, you should know that once the beam goes through tissues, there will be inevitably loss of the coherence, probably at about 2 centimeters depth. So in the depths of the body, both laser and LED will act equally, you know, they will act the same. So the myth that coherent light is necessary is not really true. And modern science has improved it, and yet 2020, 24, we see the studies coming up explaining that. So power density in near-infrared light is 100 milliwatt per centimeter square, and red is 50 milliwatt per centimeter square. And light is pulsed between 10 to 1000 hertz in program 1 and 2, and in continuous is in program 3. And energy density with near-infrared light will be 60 joules per centimeter square. Sorry, I made again mistake. Oh yeah, in near-infrared, no mistake. Near-infrared light, 60 joules per centimeter square, and in red, 30 joules per centimeter square maximum. So time is 10 minutes cycle. So here I come to the really, really important point to tell you is that power density. Power density is decisive factor how we get that density 60 and 30 at depths of the tissue. Because if we didn't have that power density, we will be still superficial. We're not going to penetrate it. So we're targeting by wavelengths, targeting by source, and targeting by power density. So now I'm going to stop the presentation and I'm going to ask you questions. I hope it's become more or less clear for you. Okay.